Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Hot Pot, which is the hardest asteroid, or I guess hardest difficulty asteroid. It's at cycle 10. Still only have 3 dupes, by the way. Basic resource checks, like I always want to do in these. My food is holding pretty decently stable, so got my meal ice coming up. A little bit of excellent fruit left over. Things are looking okay there. Oxygen is looking a little sad, but it's holding okay. So I've just planted these oxyferns, which are really not going to be enough to give my dupes oxygen from a singular source here. So I did deconstruct my bathroom just a little bit early. I do need to tell them to bring this stuff down here. But oxygen's going to be a huge problem throughout this, as I'm starting to realize. I think food is going to be a little bit easier problem than oxygen for sure. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be setting up a setup right here, which is going to be for oxygen from morbs. Which is going to be a pretty crazy setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to purposefully have dupes use these up until they're full. Once they are full, I will not allow them to empty them, and then I will lock this door so that these will continually spawn morbs. I'm going to need a few different oxygen sources here, which is why I did want my dupes to run this polluted dirt down to this. And my research is going to catch up to it here pretty soon. I'm about to have these deodorizers. The problem here is that getting sand is going to be pretty hard. I'm going to have to deal with some of this really warm sand, and I'm going to have to probably make an opening to my base that's a little bit far away. Or I can just do something else, which probably is a better idea now that I'm thinking about it. I need to research the brute force refinement of rock crusher so I could just make my own sand, which really sucks, and I don't want to have to do that. But the problem here, and like I've talked about several times, is I'm really having to balance this out with how I introduce heat into my base, and I'm going to have to find a way to get out and get some of this sand, or find a way to create sand at a reasonable pacing, but it's going to be so bad with the tools that I have. So like I said, never done this before. This could be a horrible death, but we got our deodorizers here. Going to go ahead and get those up. And I think I'm going to rush the research on this rock crusher, because I do think that this is our only real long-term viable way to create a lot of oxygen, and that is just to get it from those free morbs that spawn. But I do need a way to filter it, and if I do have to make my own sand, then I have to make my own sand. My only other idea here is to create a water lock and head in and start digging some of this out a little bit. This is going to be really hot for my dupes, so they might get injured doing so. But the problem is that if I bring warm sand back in my base, wherever I bring it to is going to also be very warm, and that's not great for me. Another thing I want to know, actually, I don't know if I've ever done this before, but let's see what the survival temperature is for these things. Oh, these things can live in really hot temperatures. Huh. So I guess if all of my filtration is in an already hot place, I could do that, but I don't have a way to have my dupes go back and forth there right now. This is another big problem I'm facing, and that is, how am I ever going to get suits up if I don't have reed fibers? And I don't know where I'm going to get those reed fibers from, other than maybe hope that I get some Drecos from this printing pod, or hope I get some thimble reed seeds from the printing pod, or something. So I'm feeling very locked into my base right now. Yeah. Let me talk about the more typical stuff here. The typical stuff is going to be, I obviously got my mess hall up, got my bedroom up. My research is all the way up. I do have advanced research done, so the research for my plants and for this water cooler have both come down. Some other obvious things is I think I discovered one of my map traits, and I think it's these huge boulders, which kinda sucks. This is again just only getting harder and harder as I have to dig into this, but I'm pretty sure this is one of my map traits as far as I can tell. And for people that have already seen this, they're like, duh, how did you not know that from the beginning? And that's because I intentionally deprive myself of knowing what traits are on the maps that I play. So yeah, that's interesting. And I also did get these airflow tiles, of course, and that's just to allow for stuff to move back and forth between my bases, or between different levels of my base, that is. Yeah, I'm really in some desperate need of oxygen. I may have to add more of these oxyferns, and I want to use this water up as slowly as I possibly can, because getting out on the map, or not being able to, that is, means I really don't have a source of water. Unless I start setting up some bathroom loops and stuff, but I'm still pretty far off from getting anything like that. Alright, Rock Crusher. Let's start making some sand. Probably just gonna have to keep an eye on this regularly. This is so funny that I'm having to make sand, because I just don't know of a super safe way to do this otherwise. At least not in a way that my dupes aren't going to get hurt, so it's kind of a bummer. But yeah, some other things that are really on my mind is getting coal power up, which it's not going to be too big of a deal. These hatches at minimum can eat dirt, and I don't really want to feed them dirt, because they're going to start creating sage hatches if they do that, and I don't like these. Mostly because their diet's just not great long term. I guess they return more coal for what they eat, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of these, and I really don't want to spend all my fertilizer on getting coal, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about that yet. I may need to add more oxyferns here. I really do need to keep an eye on my oxygen saturation, which is getting pretty bad. So, I don't want to have to do this, but I guess I have to add a couple more. This is hard. I'm going to try to get these more spawning points up as soon as possible, so I don't want to take on more dupes, obviously. That's not going to be a solution. Ideally, I would have built something like this from the beginning, so I didn't get a bunch of uses on outhouses that I don't have anymore, so that's kind of rough. So yeah, oxygen is the biggest problem right now. And maybe I'll just plant a couple more of these for the time being. This water is so precious. I have no way to recover this other than to start setting up bathroom loops, but I don't have any tech like that yet, so... this is hard. Alright, well, that's pretty much all I have for right now. I think I've talked about everything that has changed and everything that's on my mind. So I'll be back as soon as there's more interesting stuff to talk about with another section of this video. So I think what I'm usually going to do with these videos, by the way, is I'm usually just going to release them all at once. And that's only because I play kind of irregularly, and I don't want to, like, have a video coming out, like, four videos in one day, for example, and then, like, not another one for another week or so. So I do want to just release them all batch at once. And hopefully this will be, a reference that people can, like, take a look at and try out on their own asteroids of this difficulty, but this is also meant to be just like a, let's kind of learn together, let's talk about it together, and if I happen to die, which I will keep these videos if I do, then the comments will be really useful about like, oh, you did this wrong, or you could have done this better, or whatever. So we'll see when we get there, but at least for right now, I'm going to keep playing and try to not die, so I'll see you guys back here really soon.